For the past weeks, we've been talking about how to get a good macro image every single time, and we've been focusing on what makes a good macro image. We've talked about subjects being 25%, light being 20%, and focus and sharpness being 15% of what makes a good macro image. Altogether, that has given us 60%, but we have to get to 100, so we are back with another aspect that makes up a good macro image. And today we are going to be talking about composition, and composition is 15% of what makes a good macro image. So by the time we are done with this, you'll be having 75% out of a possible 100% of what makes a good macro image. And if you haven't seen the other parts of it, I recommend you do check it out first and then come back to this. And by the time we are done with this series, you are going to be getting good macro images every single time. If you're new to the channel, my name is David Joseph at ABCD David. I'm a macro wildlife photographer based in Nigeria, and I love photographing frogs and spiders and literally any other attractive bug I find. So yeah, it's how it is. We all know how essential composition is in general photography, and some may say composition is not necessary in macro photography. Funny thing is, while they say that, they are unconsciously or unknowingly composing their images, but just in a way that they don't know they are composing it. Composition in macro photography is essential, I have to say, and it's one of those things that lets a viewer know where to look at, what to look at, and what to feel. Composition is what will literally help any viewer understand and appreciate the image in front of them more, and it's one of the easiest ways to put the viewer in your shoes. So regardless if it's a macro photograph you are taking, composition is very important. The thing I love most about composition in macro photography is that it's very natural and very simple, and sometimes because of just how the field conditions are, you probably are not having composition as the primary thing on your mind, but it doesn't mean that it's not important or that you are not unconsciously doing it, especially if you are a pro macro wildlife photographer, because let's be honest, composition is what will set the image apart from the rest. And of course, you could have two different people take the exact same picture, but if the composition is off on one of them, it's just going to be another image that is going to be looked at for 3 to 5 seconds and then forgotten. Composition is what stamps the image in the mind of the viewer, and that is why you have to nail it at all times. Yeah, at all times. One of the things that helped me get composition in macro photography every single time is being present. The thing is, I think for beginners, it's so easy to rush once you've seen the subject and try to get a picture of it, thinking that it's going to go away, or I don't know what they're probably thinking of. And I think I was guilty of that. But you see, the thing is, with experience and having photographed that subject so many times, you kind of know the behavior of the subject, and even if you lose the subject, like it goes away, it doesn't bother you. So I guess it's something that comes with experience, this calm. So when you have that calm, you're able to be present and experience the moment. It's like being there, not for photographing the subject first, but to have a moment with the subject first. And that presence is really going to help you know how to look at that subject in a way that is flattering, or know how to put that subject in a way that is flattering in the environment that it is, or just how to photograph a certain part of it to be well composed and make it appear world class. I also do get assisted by my camera. I turn on the grid lines, and this helps me know where the center is at and if I have to follow rules of thirds for the composition. But I'll be honest, I don't think I primarily look at this thing when I'm actually shooting the photo. I think while I'm shooting the photo, the most important thing for me is to have a little bit of space on top of the subject, that is headspace or headroom, and also on the sides of the subject. And when I'm then editing it in post, I can then adjust the composition perfectly and straighten things, maybe even cropping a little bit. This is very helpful because the space does a whole lot, and while we are shooting, we are not going to be just know how to perfectly align everything. But if we are editing, yeah, it's easier to align everything perfectly just as we want. So that is why I always leave space on top and beside the subject. So that is something you can try as well. In macro wildlife photography, the three most popular and also the easiest compositions are: number one, filling the frame. This is when you magnify and photograph the subject in a way that the frame is just the subject. It fills the frame, be it the eyes, be it the head, be it the face. That's just what this composition is all about. And even when it's this way, it's, well, I know it's subjective and there are instances where you can get away with it, but if you really want to make it better, it's best if it's symmetrical. Like, you can divide the frame into two equal parts and the subject will be that way, either left and right or up and down. That really rocks, to be honest. I mean, it looks very awesome, but it's not essential because sometimes you may not be photographing the subject straight on. You could be photographing it from an angle, but filling the frame is one of the most popular and easiest compositions in macro photography. So it's something I recommend you try if you struggle with composition. I know it's tricky sometimes because if you are doing like a focus bracket, by the time you are done with the result, it could be a little bit cropped in that it kind of ruins the composition or affects parts of the subject that you did not originally want out of the frame. So you have to be careful with that, and like I said, you have to leave a little bit of space so that when you crop in or when Helicon or Zerine crops in, you're going to have more, still have space. So that's the first one. The second one is all about placing your subject in the center, and it's quite similar to filling the frame, but this time you don't have to fill the frame. All you have to do is place it in the center. This could be on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth grid of the frame, of the screen. Yeah, so just place it at the center, and you could utilize certain techniques while doing this, like maybe including a foreground element or maybe leading lines, things that lead to the subject to make it easy to identify, detect, or just focus on. It's one of the easiest composition techniques to play with in macro wildlife photography, and it's also a very fun one because of the flexibility it offers you. So the second one is center framing, and yep, that should be one of your favorites if you're trying to get good macro images that isn't all about magnification every single time. The third one is another technique you're familiar with, and it's the rule of thirds. I guess it makes sense to put rule of thirds as the third one because, I mean, we are talking about thirds here. It's one of the most popular composition techniques in art as a whole, and I really like using rule of thirds where center framing does not suit the image well. And in situations like this, rule of thirds is usually the answer. So if you try these techniques and make sure that you nail your composition in, well, I don't know if I should say every image, but at least 97.5% of the images you take, I mean, it could be higher. Yeah, you are definitely getting another free 15%. And adding it all together, you have 75%. And that is from subject 25%. Lighting 20%, focus and sharpness, which is another 15%, and composition now 15%, and you have 75% of what makes a good macro image every single time. So by the time you have all these put together, that's 75%, and already that is already a good image. So that's simply it for composition. I mean, this is not an in-depth video into composition, but it's just me letting you know the things that make up a good macro image. So you don't have to just go out there in the field, maybe get the subject, but not compose the image well. Even when it's a macro photograph, let it be straight. It shouldn't be slant and, crooked. It's all part of the things that makes up a good macro image. Again, I'm David Joseph at ABCD David, macro wildlife photographer based in Nigeria. And if you want to support the channel, there's a buy me a coffee link in the description. So thank you so much for that. And I hope you're subscribed. So that's it for this video, but we still have another one coming. And remember, this is a 3-part series, and this is just the first part that we've made multiple videos for already. So, I mean, consider subscribing just in case you never find the channel again. Bye.